Now that the Skyline Valley update has released for Fallout 76, Bethesda has been hitting the interview circuit, first by speaking with Jez Corden, followed by Mr.Mattyplays. Links on both interviews are in the description below. The Skyline Valley update makes Fallout 76 well worth joining up, if you have not played in a while or have not played ever for that matter. 76's failings aside, this update is a huge step in the right direction. After the Xbox showcase, Jez Corden spoke with art director Jonathan Rush and executive producer Bill Lacoste about Fallout 76's past, present, and future. The first question asked was what I consider to be a layup type question. Jez talked about how the launch went for 76, and then asked them how the road has been to get where the game is now. Obviously, the answer was just about how proud they are, so I don't really need to go over that one. The next question asked about what players can expect to find from this new update. Bill said, well, the biggest feature of this update is that we've expanded the map into the Shenandoah National Park, something we have never done in 76, and it's exciting. There's something for everyone in this region. Players are going to be introduced to a brand new branching storyline involving Vault 63, as well as get a new event, a new boss event, new points of interest to explore, more side quests, and even a host of new camp spots with some very rich vistas. They're also going to get our commitment to adding even more content to this area in the future. Now, I played the new content on the public test server and it was very good. I am currently working on recording my playthrough of the live content. It is well worth playing, and since I have to get all the dialogue options for the lore videos, I will be playing through this content many times over. This new region is quite big, though not as big as the other regions in the game. There is a lot of content here even with the smaller size. I hope they continue to expand the map in other portions of the map because there's a lot of open space on that map. The next question asked what the approach is to storytelling in this update. Bill said, well, ever since we started the resettling of Appalachia, we introduced a bunch of new factions, new leaders, new locations, and new characters which offer a wide range of interactions. With Skyline Valley, you're going to get more of that, but our new mainline quest does bring some new elements to the traditional arc, but you're going to have to play it to experience it. There are some interesting choices to make and new faction encounters too. I won't spoil any of them here. That said, they are fun encounters if you do it right. Now, to be clear, this update does not reach the levels of, say, Wastelanders, but it is a very important step forward. The next question asked if new players can just jump into the Skyline Valley questline. Bill said, when you come out of the vault, if you're looking out, you don't really see the storm as a new player. You don't really see it until you get part of the way through the ash heap, kind of. And that's when it kind of starts to draw your attention. Because if you're fresh out of the vault and you saw it, you've got all this other stuff and you just go straight to it. But we've kind of set it up so that if someone comes out of the vault, they see the first responder smoke coming up, and that's kind of where they're going. But yeah, if somebody knew about it, wanted to beeline straight there, they could. Jonathan clarified, I think maybe level 25 is the minimum, and that's because that's when the request is automatically added to your journal and the radio channel. 25 is probably the minimum to start the quest. You can go out there and do stuff around the area at any level though. Bill kind of danced around the answer while Jonathan was kind of upfront. To be clear, there is a level requirement for the main quest to become available. Can you just go to the region and explore? Sure you can, but you are not going to have as much fun doing that when you can't do the main quest. All of the content there loses its context without the main quest. The next question was kind of a big one for the community, and it was about mod support. Bill said, "We've never really pushed back on players who add UI mods and things like that. But any other mods where you would expect to have a script extender that you often see for single player games, that won't happen with Fallout 76. Being online, we have to protect the integrity of the game to make sure that players aren't injecting code and destroying the balance of the game in some way, shape, or form." Taking public teams, for example, we wanted to make sure that players' mods weren't affected by some of those new features that came in. Even though we don't officially support mods, we're still aware of the mods that players are using for UI things. So ultimately, we gave them the loadout system and the job board. They already kind of started to appear in the modding community. They had a way for them to be able to select different loadouts and actually change the parts on the fly, but we kind of gave them that in the game, which is better supported. We did this because if we do any updates, it kind of guarantees that the features will continue to work. But yeah, we don't officially support mods for a lot of different reasons. We try not to break the UI mods, but sometimes it's necessary. That was a lot of word salad just to say no. Mods will never be a thing for the live service life of the game. The only thing that we can hope for in terms of mods is that once 76 reaches its end of life, Bethesda decides to release the game as a single-player game along with a version of the creation kit for 76. The next question asked why they chose to expand the map instead of just creating another instanced area like the expeditions are. Bill said a lot of it was just based on something we've wanted to do for a long time. We built out the pit and Atlantic City for specific players and play types, and those spaces have been super successful. But we felt like it's time to introduce something new, and this space hits all the beats we were looking for post-launch of the TV show. The space is accessible for new players, which we have a lot of these days, provides a new space to build camps in, and as I noted earlier, brings in new events, random encounters, and an amazing new storyline surrounding the Lost. Expeditions are absolutely for a very specific player type. I am not one of those players. Will I go and play the expedition once or twice? Sure I will, but that's about it. So that alone makes this a better update. The next couple of questions were not really good questions to ask, and as such, the responses were not substantive. So I'm not going to touch on those. The next question was asking what points of feedback they wish to address in the future. Bill said, "Oh, I could spend all day on this because we have such a dedicated and passionate community. But we're addressing one of the big ones with this update of Skyline Valley by expanding the map. This has been a request for a long time, and we have also wanted this. Aside from that, there are several legacy systems that need some love. We have combat rebalancing to do, which is also part of this new update, and even screens like the workshop menu have become overloaded and hard to navigate. So we'll continue to explore changes to things like this going forward. Combat rebalancing is a much needed feature. Being able to kill just about any enemy in one shot is cool and all, when it's just you as a single player. But it takes all the fun out of the game if there's no struggle for survival. Sure, when I'm recording content, it is much faster for me to be able to kill enemies quickly, that way I can get on with the story. That's why, for the most part, I record content from my private Worlds server. This way, I can take the worry of survival out of the equation in order to focus on the lore. However, when I play the game just to have fun, I play on my private server or with some of my friends because I just want to relax and play the game as it is intended to be played. Now, that doesn't mean I want the enemies to be bullet sponges either. I think there needs to be a balance there, but it should be difficult to some degree. The next question asked about crossplay and cross-save. Bill said, anything is possible. However, for 76, there's a very heavy technical lift because you're talking about having to adjust for different platform accounts, add-on purchases, platform-specific social systems, and other entitlements, and we feel the time and effort is best spent on content. I won't ever say it's off the table, but this is one of those features that is very complex to add later. I don't think they want to make this a thing. To be honest, I can't see how the reasons given would be an issue unless purchases are linked to a specific platform only. If that is the case, then I can see how this would be a problem, though it shouldn't be since the information is not stored locally. Atomic Shop and whatnot are server-side, and thus the transaction would be as well. Something just isn't adding up. The last question was about the elephant in the room, that being about Nuclear Winter. Bill said it's not 100% off the table, but the engagement is much higher on the other game modes, and we went through an extensive sunsetting exercise to get all the rewards moved over to adventure mode. It's currently not on the roadmap to bring back. So you're saying there's a chance? Well, a small chance, but the fact that it is not on the roadmap suggests that the reality is that this mode is dead. Remember, when they say roadmap, for them it is 3 to 5 years of time. This means that unless something drastic happens, Nuclear Winter is, for all intents and purposes, dead. Now we head into the Mr.Mattyplays interview with Todd Howard, where they talk about Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and Starfield. Now, to be clear, I am aware of the drama that is encircling this interview. I do think that Matty did a good job with the interview. My only criticism is that he appeared to shill a bit too much, and he failed to ask any difficult questions. I realize his position as well. If he pushed too hard, he might not have ever gotten another opportunity, and thus he did the best he could to avoid such an outcome. That, however, does not mean that he is entirely absolved, nor does it mean he should be getting as much hate as he is. The interview was fine for what it was. We are going to go over Todd's answers here so that we can discuss it. The first question was a bit long-winded, and that will be the theme for the rest of the interview, was what the feeling is moving forward with Fallout.
Well, look, first I agree with the statement that Fallout's never been more popular. Okay. And looking at the number of players coming to those games, obviously the popularity of the TV show. So when, we give a lot of thought to kind of franchise management. I spend a lot of time thinking about franchises I love, what I've seen out there in terms of content. And so for us, it's sort of game planning out. Number one, making sure Fallout is relevant in the world. And I think, well, clearly it is. And Check. People are hungry for even more. We've never stopped doing, Fallout work. A lot of that work goes on, obviously, in Fallout 76. We have the Skyline Valley update out today.
Yeah.
And so really, really excited with where that game is at. Feel really fortunate, and the team so proud of the work that's been done there. And then for other Fallout games in the future, obviously I can't talk about those right now, but I would say sort of rushing through them, or we need to get stuff out that is different than the work we're doing in 76. We don't feel like we need to rush any of that. Right now, the Fallout TV show fills a certain niche in terms of the franchise and storytelling. Totally get the desire for a new kind of mainline single player game. And look, those things take time. I don't think it's bad for people to miss things.
Right.
As well. So we just want to get it right and make sure that everything we're doing in a franchise, whether it's Elder Scrolls or Fallout or now Starfield, that those become, meaningful moments for everybody who love these franchises as much as we do.
Got it. So it's kind of a bit of waiting for the right opportunity for you guys, and less about meeting a cadence per se, like we have to have a Fallout game done in X amount of years.
More or less. Okay. Yeah. And I would say, look, obviously I can't talk about the stuff that we're working on in this moment.
Sure.
And so my desires are always like I'd like to hold the stuff back as long as possible.
Yeah.
And, my perfect scenario for games are to announce them and get them out as quickly as possible. So I know it's probably not the answer everybody wants. They want to know everything that's happening.
There is clearly something in the works, but Todd is not able to talk about it yet. He's always been kind of cagey with these types of questions, but when Matty mentioned the time frame, Todd was caught off guard and had to cover up quickly. Every interviewer would love to be the one to get an announcement for something that no one knows about. But Matty knows this isn't going to happen, so there's no need for him to paint himself into a corner. The next question was about Fallout 76 and how much support it gets and for how long.
We're going to keep going. Look, that game has never been more popular than it is right now as we're talking. And so we have a great kind of internal roadmap of things that we're doing for the next several years for that game. We think it's going to keep continuing. You think one of the things that you see, in the industry overall is people play their games for longer. This study at the end of last year, like the top 10 played games for 2023, the average age of those games was 6 years old.
Wow.
Fallout 76 is now 6 years old. The only new game I think in that list was Starfield, and the only single player game, new IP, excuse me. And so we found this too with Skyrim turning 13 years old, that people really do play these games for a long time. And so for 76, we think it's going to continue.
Obviously, 76 is doing well, better now since the TV show. That said, these updates need to persist. I am not talking about the bug fix updates. Rather, I'm talking about updates like Skyline Valley. Without those constant updates, the player count will diminish again. The next question asked about how updates will progress going forward, and will there be more updates like the Atlantic City expedition, where they will have fully playable, explorable zones?
I think the expeditions are good. They're okay. The map expansion, we feel, is a much better, we're dropping these big free content updates. I think that's a much more meaningful one. We're going to see how Skyline Valley does. There's another part to it that then is coming as well. And so I don't want to spoil everything. I think that type of thing where people can play on the map. I'm going through the list of features now. Well, I would say this: we teased the ghoul pretty early. That's pretty early for us to tease a feature that's coming, early-ish next year to Fallout 76. And that's a really good one that changes how your character plays. So I think the good thing about a game like that, if you look at the last 6 years of updates we've done, I think there's close to 50 updates to the game. You see kind of, how things changed and evolved over that time period. And we feel we're able to keep that up.
Todd's answer here is really telling. It sounds like Bethesda is not really happy with how Expeditions panned out, and are now instead focusing their efforts on expanding the map. This can be a bit of a double-edged sword, because eventually they will run out of space on the map as it exists today. So they will either stop expanding the map, or they will have to make the map bigger than it already is. Maybe they will come up with a way to integrate other maps, giving us a way to choose different maps in a sub-menu. Who knows? Now, this next question had me yelling at Matty to just stop, because he drops the idea of charging for new content. Now, just to be clear, I am okay with going the route of paid updates as long as it follows the same path as ESO. What I'm not okay with is what Bethesda has already done with Starfield by releasing paid content under the guise of it being a mod.
The good news is that the other things you talked about, like the Atomic Shop, Fallout First, the seasons and rank ups and all of these things that are there. And I know like that kind of, you see it in games, sometimes those types of monetization, they get a negative reaction. But the one thing they do allow us to do is do these big expansions and give them to everybody for free. And so I think there's a debate there and like, what is the right approach? I will say that approach is working awesome for 76. And we got a really, really healthy community around the game. and that when we're able to drop like a Skyline Valley, because it is an online game, you want the community, everybody is experiencing that together. So I just want to say, like, here, like, shout out to the Fallout 76 community.
Yeah.
You know, that game obviously had a rough launch, and our community really stuck with it. And given the nature of the game where we started, which is, hey, the players in this world are going to make it their own. Can't say enough about them as new players come into the game. It's the most friendly apocalypse that there could be. And we're hearing from like our elder players, people who played the game for years, how excited they were when the show came out and all these new players came in, because it changed the game for them as well. So really, really special.
Todd's answer danced around quite a bit, but he never said no, which means it's something that has been talked about. He did talk about all the ways they get revenue already, and from the sound of it, that is not a small amount. My worry here is that Bethesda does start to do things like this, releasing content that you have to pay for, and that is where I begin to question whether I want to continue to play or not. Matty then asked if there is any worry within the studio that having two games from the same franchise out at the same time would cannibalize the audience from one to the other.
That's a really good question. And when you're sort of starting those things, but we have that fear as well. Is one game going to cannibalize another? I think the good news is, as long as like the initial releases are spread out a little bit, they don't. They both find their audiences, right? Like Skyrim is still one of our most played games, while Elder Scrolls Online is celebrating their 10th anniversary and doing really well. We've noticed even when we update those games, they don't really cannibalize each other. Then you see it with Fallout 4 kind of hitting number one on the charts, and then 76 right behind it. And so, I mean, logic would say there's a little bit of cannibalization between the two, but much, much less in practice than we thought between these games. So, you know, when there's another Fallout, we'll call it classically single player game, my expectation is 76 is just as healthy as it is today.
Todd answered that one perfectly. I doubt there would be any real issue with having a new game release while a live service game from the same franchise is active. As Todd said, each game has its own audience. Matty then asked if games that Bethesda puts out going forward should be considered games as a service, since they continue to update their games well after launch.
I don't know that I would put that label on it, but I think the end thing you said, which is that expectation that we'll update them for years, is true. We would look back at Skyrim, which we're still updating to a small extent, and there's all of the creations and mods there, still a hugely played game. Same with Fallout 4, that we wish we had supported them longer, right? And we're still doing work there. So going back to that people staying in games, we went into 76 knowing, hey, this is a game we're going to support for as long as we can. Starfield, we go into that knowing the same thing. And as we go into Elder Scrolls 6, we sort of, with all of these games, you got to start now by thinking about like a 10-year horizon, right? How do we support a game for that long? And that's the trick. Like, as we sit here right now, our games have never been more popular. We have last month 25 million players in our games. And so it's just like a staggering amount of people and players that we hear from, where our number one job always is like, how are we serving that audience on a month-to-month basis? So we're taking care of them while also developing, new products.
So I guess from now on, every game Bethesda produces is done with the expectation that they will support it for the next 10 years? Well, that makes sense, as it basically takes them that long to develop a new title. Jokes aside, it is nice to know that they plan to support and update their games well into the future. Matty followed up by asking if the plan is to support Elder Scrolls 6 in the same manner as Skyrim.
100%. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Seeing what Skyrim has done or other games. And I think you could say, look, for Elder Scrolls 6, I'll just stop there. We know people are going to play it for a long time, and it's not just, I think a game like that, it's not just what it means for content. It means it goes further than that in, the type of game, what it means for your character, what it means for other things, to say, hey, can this be something that you come back to? And so we see that with Skyrim, what people do in the game today. And I'm, even though it's popular, what are people doing when they come back to the game after, putting it down for a few years? So
Todd really struggled here, and I think it's because he wanted to say more, but he is not allowed to say more. I think his answer was good enough for the question that was asked. Matty then steered back to Fallout, asking if Bethesda has given any thought to modernizing the older games.
Well, look, I love the question, and I agree with a lot of what you said. A main priority for us is to make sure they're available and you can still play them. So on the PC, obviously they're there for people to go and get and play, and making sure that, they run okay. As far as sort of beyond that, we've talked about it, but, our priorities in terms of, hey, let's go do dev work and make certain things work. They haven't been in those areas. So
Sure.
Again, priority is, hey, can people load it up and play it? And I do think we want it to load up and run well. The rest of it, like, I could argue, I think some of the charm of games, from that area in the original Fallouts is a little bit of that age, right? So I would never want to sort of, paste over some of that with, well, we changed how this works, so it's more modern. Again, so as long as you can download it, as long as it loads up and runs, I think I'd like people to experience it the way it was.
No, I totally respect that. So what if you had it as the way it was on consoles? Is that ever I don't even know if that would be possible with the way the game controls, but have you thought of that?
Anything is possible, but that's going to be a longer dev throw. And you sort of have to ask yourself, is that where we want to put our time right now? Or is it best played the way it was on a PC? And I think right now, if you ask me, I think the best way to play it is on a PC, mouse and keyboard, the way it was.
Todd's answer was not anything I didn't expect. Yes, I agree there is a certain charm in the original games. However, as a fan of the original game, and as it is my all-time favorite in the series, I would love to see the game get remade in, say, the Creation Engine 2. The older games do have that limiting factor in that they are not going to be for everyone simply because of the isometric view, or how the game plays, or any other number of issues that people may have with it in its current form. In this matter, Todd is not correct in his thought process, and this is an instance where Matty should have put his big boy panties on and stepped up to push back on that thought process. He is always pushing for it from a remaster standpoint with Fallout 3 in New Vegas, so why not now? Well, it's simple. He didn't want to make Todd mad or get on his bad side because he wants to be able to continue to have these types of interviews. If it were me, I would have pushed back on that, and I would have laid out all the reasons why it would work. The next question gets back to the Elder Scrolls, and this time Matty asked if Bethesda is as protective of their IP as the online community says they are, and are they open to allowing other studios to create spin-off games?
Well, first, I would say is we're protective of all the franchises as you think. Like, we want to make sure they're great and we're serving the audience really, really well. And so, I mean, it's kind of the same answer from Fallout, which is there are a lot of things we look at with Elder Scrolls. You mentioned an immersive Dark Brotherhood sim. I'm not suggesting that wouldn't be a bad game, but I don't view that as filling some hole. I mean, I think what people want out of Elder Scrolls is a mainline game like Skyrim, like Oblivion. And if I look at the franchise again, Elder Scrolls Online has done so well. I can't say enough great things about the team at ZeniMax Online, really good friends with Matt Fire, and what they've done over a decade with that game in a very difficult market, making an MMO. Now, and I've said this, the gap between, and I think I saw this on the Twixter, that it's the 6th anniversary of us releasing the teaser for Elder Scrolls 6. It might be today.
Man. Really? Okay.
And so that did make me pause and say, oh, wow, that has been a while. And so appreciate that wait. Like I was talking about college football, like, and now that we're working on Elder Scrolls 6 and we get to see it here in the studio, you know, you do miss it. And so appreciate all of those thoughts and are with the fans on that. And we're working hard on it. And so, you know, one day we'll have it to everybody.
Todd's answer was not surprising. Once again, he danced around the question, never really giving an actual answer, and instead turning the conversation into a different direction. So basically, without saying no, he said no. This led right into the next question, which was about the active development of the Elder Scrolls 6.
We overlap a lot in those. Sure. We give our pre-productions where we're in design and concept and talking about something. And, you know, a lot of the Starfield technology is the starting point for Elder Scrolls 6. And then obviously we try to do another jump up in technology with looking at, you know, what's coming in the future, how do we do that, and always be moving the ball forward.
Not much there, and really nothing we didn't already know, as this has become a pretty standard question for Todd, not one that I would have asked. From here, the conversation moved to Starfield, and the question asked was about the cadence of the updates.
Well, first, I think the cadence of things, you know, I think it's going to differ depending on the update that we're doing and where our development lands. I think sometimes, look, you'll have some shorter gaps. Sometimes you'll have bigger gaps between bigger updates. And so these two just, you know, they kind of lined up that way. And we really felt coming into the Xbox showcase, that was a really good moment to sort of launch, you know, the mod tools and the creations, even though it was, you know, close to the maps and the gameplay options that we just did. But, you know, those lined up really well for us dev-wise. But then, look, there'll probably be more of a gap after this. There'll be some bigger gaps next year as we look at, you know, those big beats for kind of year 2 that we're planning. And so we'll make sure, hopefully, that we communicate that well to the audience so they kind of know. But I think that 6-week thing that you're referencing, I don't see that holding true. And I don't know that it's that helpful if we have something bigger planned to sort of space that out as long as we're letting everybody know.
No, it totally makes sense.
So Todd just put it out there and said there's not really going to be any cadence to the updates. Everything he said made perfect sense to me, so I don't feel there's any need to clarify it. Maddie then asked about Shattered Space and how long it has been in development.
Starfield Shattered Space, I thought this trailer looked phenomenal. Like, I already loved Starfield, but I thought that the base game kind of, I'm driven to this mentality by like the score of the game. There was like a curiosity, a wonder, like what's out there? Go figure it out. Shattered Space kind of felt like, well, now you know what's out there, and it's not looking too good. So one thing that people have been wondering about with the time that Starfield was spent in development, and then it got that delay into late last year, is about how long this DLC, this expansion, has been cooking. How long have you guys been working on this one? Again, this goes back to like, it blows my mind for your team size in today's industry. You know, you said 450. How much you guys get done. I know you have a lot of partners and whatnot, but it's so, I don't think people really understand how crazy it is what you guys are able to pull off. So how long has Shattered Space been in development for?
We started it like actual dev work when we finished Starfield. So early September, end of August, September last year. But we had, you know, obviously talked about it. Here's what it's going to be. We didn't announce the name. I think when we announced the deluxe edition, premium edition of Starfield. But to your point, you know, we are doing a lot. We kind of have 5 teams within the studio, both with obviously Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6 we talked about, the Fallout 76 work. We have a mobile team, and then we have a team that handles kind of development partnerships and external development that we do along with other folks that help us out. And so, to your point, it is a lot, but Shattered Space, again, something we had planned for. And one of the things that, I mean, it's great to see everybody react to the trailer and the mood that we're trying to put out there. But one of the things that we always liked about it from the get-go, and I don't think people realize, is that Shattered Space, the bulk of that expansion pack, pretty much, once you get to the city and the planet, it takes place there.
That's going to be one of my questions.
It allows us to build a landscape like we would traditionally do and have the city and the quest. And so that story takes place there, and the landscape's kind of, content-wise, we're looking at kind of like what we do with Far Harbor on Fallout 4. We're like, okay,
language.
This is a scope that works for, our development in doing this kind of annual story expansion type of thing. So really excited about that. And it lets us, kind of do some things the way we would in previous games and give people not completely that experience because it's still Starfield.
Sure.
But, this new kind of alien world that you're able to explore, and it takes place there.
Todd really gave us more in that answer than we've gotten from any other question so far. He talked about how long they've been working on it and how big it is, and the biggest point for me was that it seems like it will be a more traditionally handcrafted type of thing. You all know how I feel about Starfield, so I won't go into that. My hope is that Shattered Space is better than what they gave us initially. Maddie then moved right into the next question, asking if they were influenced by any reactions from the community to the base game.
I would say when we were making Starfield, look, we struggled with, how to make exploration fun on big barren planets. And we felt good with where we landed, knowing that it's not going to scratch the same itch for a lot of people that you would when you have a more bespoke landscape that you're exploring. So it was for us too. We know we wanted to build something like that and felt that this was the right way to go about it with something that had its own theme and tone that we could put, on a planet. So I think one of the benefits of Starfield and its scope is it allows something like that within it while feeling natural. So it wasn't a reaction. It was our own reaction that we had as well. Yeah.
Todd's response here was not encouraging. He basically said that they made Starfield for themselves, not the fans, and that explains a lot when it comes to the reaction from the studio as a whole, basically ignoring the fan base or telling them they were wrong for daring to say anything bad about the game. It's answers like this that make me not excited for future updates because I worry that they will still follow the same path. Maddie then asked if they plan to do an annual story expansion every year.
I would say we want to, more or less, yeah. How long that continues, hopefully a very long time, but we're planning for the one after this, so there will be another one. And I don't know that our goal is to answer every question. We sort of look at it and say, hey, what's a good angle? What do we want to add to the game as far as an experience or a tone or those kind of things, if that makes sense.
So yes and no. They do have plans for at least one more expansion, but nothing is set in stone further down the line, and he shut down the part about answering every question in the game. So far, the Starfield stuff is not making me feel better about the game. Maddie then asked about feature updates to Starfield, and Todd just said they were looking into a lot of things like vehicles. Then Maddie asked about the creation engine and how Bethesda has reacted to the community feedback.
Well, I would say every game we do, we want to push our technology. I think for what we do, having a custom engine is absolutely the best way to go, because what we do is so unique in the scale of what we do and the agency we give the players and how systemic so many things in the world are. And we keep pushing it and we keep pushing it. And so I cannot say enough about our tech team here and the technology stack and tools that they've given all of us to build at this scale at speed. You then see what it's done to our modding community, right? In terms of, hey, their ability to use it. And whenever we're making that tech, it's always part of our conversation here in the studio. Like, we love doing this. How do we get it out to other people so they can do it as well? And I think if you look at a lot of, I'll just say, top games out there, a lot of them have custom engines and custom tech stacks for what they need to do. And so we're really no different there. We're always looking to push it. And, I think if you're a game developer, you see a lot of that. And I think it's great that our coders here and everybody, honored with a lot of, awards as well over the last year at the GDC Awards nomination for technology, at the BAFTAs, nice, and et cetera. So we're really, really happy with where we got it for Starfield. But then obviously we know, like, hey, we look what else is out there. Where can we push it? Working with our other, graphics partners across the industry. And hey, where are you going? Let's work on stuff together and push it wherever we can.
Of course, Bethesda is not going to change engines. They are very set in their ways, and to change that up would be to completely change how Bethesda games play, look, and feel. I understand that they don't make the best looking games from a graphics standpoint, but what they lack in that, they gain in usability, modability, and the overall playability. Matty then asked about what Todd thinks modders will be able to do with the new creation kit.
Well, our hope is, look, they can do anything that we've done with the game, and getting that out there and already seeing things populated is great. Going back to the space, we know that was an issue for folks, and we worked, early on to how big can we make this? The issue with changing it on the old games, it actually wipes everybody's mods. So we have to be like, we can't just change it on the old games. Like, we wish we could just go like that and it's bigger. But going into Starfield, we're like, well, how big, what's the maximum it could possibly be? Because a lot of these mods and creations get really big. So I just think that whole part, for our games, it's so important to us to have all of that there and really to support our creators as well. And so we had a bunch of them in the studio last month, and getting to meet our creators, it really was an incredible experience for us here. And a lot of them now, they've gone from kind of hobbyist to professional, and seeing that emotion on their faces when, hey, I've quit my job. I'm doing this full time now. And you see what they're doing. And the stuff I've seen that's coming is just awesome.
Todd answered that perfectly, and I don't really have anything that would be productive to add to it. So moving right into the next question, which was about creating an indie-style team, and if that has ever been considered.
Well, as we talked about before, we're doing quite a bit. We have a whole bunch of teams in work, and I think two parts to an answer there. One is, because our games are so big and they're these worlds, you can almost view them as platforms where doing a piece of DLC or whatever becomes a small team for us, that we can make something and get it out. The other thing is, the niche for us in a smaller team standalone project really is mobile, right? We had great success with Fallout Shelter. Then we did Blades and the Elder Scrolls Castles mobile game that's coming out worldwide soon. It's in soft launch a number of places. That lets us do something where it's a separate game. We're kind of being able to get something out there in a different fashion.
So again, it was a yes and no answer. Yes, in the sense that smaller teams produce the expansion content for the games that exist already, and no for the creating any smaller standalone games outside of mobile. Matty then asked about the pricing structure for creations.
Yeah, we hear that feedback too. And, first of all, I'd say that stuff gets priced based on, things that we've done before, both in Creation Club and then Fallout 76. And we're always trying to be kind of looking at what else is out there, really make sure we're giving value to everybody. And where we're not, hey, we definitely will adjust. The one thing I want to say on the Trackers Alliance, that was really an attempt to something we did in Creation Club, where we'd say, hey, you get this special outfit and you get this special weapon. We kind of wanted to put them together, and then thought, well, let's go the extra mile and wrap those around a quest. But now we definitely see the feedback, right? And that's like not what we want at all, in terms of, oh no, this looks like a faction that we're chopping up and then selling for 700 credits at a time. And so I do think we're going to take a look at that and how we deliver content, like that, and whether we're changing pricing or breaking it up, or what we should do there. So great feedback from the community. The one thing I'll say, we see the feedback, and a lot of people kind of, oh no, they're charging for mods. Like, as it comes to, particularly the creators out there, look, our view is that a lot of them have gone from hobbyists to professionals, and it's part of our job to make sure they can do that and that they do get paid and they see the monetary rewards from if they make awesome content. And so we had a great experience with Creation Club with our creators. And then the version we're doing now that first launched in Skyrim, everyone's just responded to really, really well. And, I think it's important for us, that part of it gives us a really healthy modding community, right? Where you do have professionals and we've seen their content kind of rise all boats in it, but you'll still have, literally millions of free creations there. And we look across the games that we've done, they've literally done like billions of downloads of mods. And it's super important to us that all of that stays really, really healthy. We think it's a big fabric of who we are as a studio, how we talk about modding, what our community is there, and just make sure that we're active and making sure it's as good as it possibly can be for really everybody involved. Obviously the players and then the creators.
All right. Todd did address the creation's pricing issues and the perception behind them putting out DLC type content within creations as opposed to just putting out a normal update to the game. Do I see anything really coming from that? No. But I do keep hoping that one day Bethesda will surprise me in a good way. Maddie then asked about the Trackers Alliance creation issues.
Well, again, something like the Trackers Alliance started with, hey, we have a cool spacesuit or outfit or weapon. How do we get that out, right? Do we want to put that up in the store for this amount, or do we want to do a quest? And just what's the best way to deliver that? Again, we had a lot of experience doing that way in Creation Club. And so, but we hear the feedback. We need to evaluate, both pricing, what we put out for free, how we communicate what's in something, and really hear from the community there.
Cool.
And again, I point out, we've done that across the other games, Skyrim, Fallout 4, 76 in particular. Yeah.
Really, Todd just rehashed what he had already said. So moving on to the next question, which was asking about the community feedback and negative reviews.
Well, I would say you alluded to it, but you've experienced some of that, right? In your creating of content and what the people who view it and say and what their comments are. And, look, the stuff that we do, you reach a level of popularity and a hype, and you just have to understand, like, for us, I know a lot of that comes with it. Okay. And you do grow a pretty thick skin. If you really want to do this, you have to grow a thick skin in accepting the criticism. That's what makes us better. And these franchises and the time that people spend in the games, they're really, really important to them. It's not always pleasant to read. No, it's like you wish people would be nicer, but it does matter a lot to them. And so the answer is yes, it does affect people here. They put their hearts and souls into these projects for years and years, and they care about it, all of us, so much to do the best job that we can. But at the end of the day, the fans and the consumers, they should, if it's not living up to what they want out of it, we expect that criticism. We need to hear it and we need to get better. And we're really, really welcoming of it. We're actually like our harshest critics here in terms of all of that. And so you do get used to it. You do have to grow a thick skin, and we love it so much that, look, that's part of it. We know it's coming. And, look, we dive into Reddit a lot. Well, I'll probably read all of the comments on this video. So, hey, everybody, yeah, I'm reading them. Be nice. Or don't be nice. If I say something stupid, call me out on it. It's fine. And I've done that, in enough interviews to know. So, but, I'd say the same thing to any creator out there, whether it's what you do, Maddie, and making these videos, or people making music, putting on SoundCloud or doing all of these things. When you're a creator, no matter what you do, whether you're a game developer, an artist, or whatever, that's going to be part of your experience. And you just have to make sure for yourself, like, do we love this? Do we feel good about it? If so, then we're going to put it out there hopefully it'll find an audience that feels the same way we do.
I am sure Todd does read a lot of it, and if he doesn't do it personally, he has someone do it for him and then report back to him about it. Now, do I think that he takes it all in or processes some of the more legitimate criticism? No. Todd has spoken enough for me to be able to tell when he is just pandering to the audience and when he is genuine in his response, and most of the time, there is a lot of PR pandering going on. Matty then dove a little deeper by asking Todd how he felt about the reviews post-launch.
You mentioned the reviews. We were ecstatic. The majority of our reviews in the 90s, in a year, it could be the best year ever for gaming. I don't know. And then, being on all these best of the year kind of lists that the game was on, and it's a new IP, so you never quite know with a new IP how it's going to land. And so I think all of the comments in the game and things like that, it's a big game with a lot of hype. It's a double-edged sword. You're going to have a lot of positives, and you're going to have a lot of people it didn't resonate with, or very specific criticism of the game that, a lot of it, we hear that, and some of them are like, yeah, we thought about that. Let's see what we can do. Let's do that. We're going to keep making it better and better. So again, we do really, really welcome it. And it's part of like who we are as we move forward, not just with Starfield, but hey, how are we approaching loot systems as we go into future games or things like that?
Nothing new in that answer, and I did not expect that there would be anything new. Matty moved right into the next question, which was about the design philosophy as it pertains to weapons and armor.
Great question. We can get really like stat and nerdy here for a minute.
Sure.
I think we need both, right? So the one-off kind of those story-based items, whether it's weapons or armor, love to do those, and you can never kind of do enough of them. The other side, which is the legendary system that you see in Starfield, some of that takes the place of like enchanted or magic weapons that you would see in an Elder Scrolls, right? And I think there are a lot of games. We still have a ways to go. We've done a lot of strides in 76 as it comes to loot drops and that grind. Starfield, I think we moved the ball in terms of where we were in Fallout, but I think we have a ways to go. There are a lot of games out there that just all they are loot grinds, and they do it really, really well. And balancing that, is a big trick. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody here plays a lot of games where you see it done really well, where you see it's okay, and then they update the game and they just tweak loot drops, and the game feels so much different and so much more rewarding. And so I think we need both. I like those bespoke weapons that have a story behind them. You're going after a Daedric artifact or those kind of things. But then the idea that, I might get that drop. I'm going to keep exploring. I'm going to get that legendary drop that has just the right amount of tweaks to the stats that my character is getting better. I'm more effective. And that really makes kind of those in-between moments more rewarding than they normally would be.
See, this is where I disagree with Todd once again. I hate grinding for anything. I do not find it rewarding at all in the hoping that I get that legendary drop of my dreams. I much prefer those items be special and unique. Maybe even having a quest behind them to find these legendary items. When they are done in the manner that you just get randomized drops, it not only takes the fun out of the game, but it also makes said item no longer special because I could get it again. Matty then asked about procedural generation and how much it will play a role in future games.
I wouldn't say massive. It's always been a tool in our toolbox. For a game like Starfield, we had to sort of take it all the way and evolving that technology to do planets, to put all that content around. And so, but, I think it has a place where you need to kind of fill out landscape as opposed to doing it all by hand. It can be better to do some of that procedural. So, I think it depends on what we're doing. Starfield obviously takes it all the way. A game like Skyrim has a little bit of it. A game like Fallout 4 has a little bit of it. 76, actually, a lot of that map was built procedurally. It's static when you play it, but the way we built it development-wise, there was a lot of procedural generation there. because we were actually building Starfield as we were into 76 and using some of those landscape systems that we were starting on. Yeah.
So this was once again a yes and no answer, in that yes, there is always some sort of procedural generation going on, and no in the sense that the amount of procedural generation depends on the type of game being made. The last question asked was not really anything substantive, and Todd's answer was nothing either, so I won't really even touch on that. That said, the interviews were fine. Neither interview really dove into any deep topics. Please go check out each one, as they are worth watching or reading. What did you think about the interviews? Were your questions answered? Were there any questions that you would have liked to have had answered? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, I'm just glad you stopped by, and I'll see you in the next one.